Well, we have Ezra Siegrist in studio. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the show. And
yeah, very excited to talk to you. I usually am, even outside of like podcasting world. Like I really enjoy your company, and I like having conversations with you. You strike me as the kind of person who has had a lot of life experience and like took notes. And I just like hearing you talk about different things. You seem to be like a random wealth of knowledge, and you seem observant in the things of life. And that's what I mean by like you took notes. Like you didn't, I see somebody kind of just live their life and not retain anything. Yeah. You learn from experiences, and like I just love hearing you talk about different things that you seem to have gone through and experienced. And you're such a great storyteller.
Yeah, I always wonder, because I ask buddies questions or whatever, and they're like, "Well, I don't know that," and I'm like, you've lived here all your life, and how do you not know the stories? Because the stories are always like, the stories are what brings deep meaning to life to me, I guess is what I would say. Yeah, they give you vision. Yeah. If anything makes me happy, it's if I can use words to give somebody vision. And it turns out using your words and changing your behavior at words is like the highest level of not having to experience pain. Because if words don't teach you, the price tag just kind of keeps going up.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is what I tell my nephews anyway.
Well, okay. So do you mean like if you can help someone, if like somebody can learn through your experience instead of having to learn it on their own the hard way, like, is that what you mean? Like there's benefit in that? Yeah.
Like, or even if I can tell you somebody else's thing that they've learned and I've grasped, then we're 3 generations out there. If I can tell a young fella that, and he doesn't have to learn it either, because learning, there's a lot of cost associated to learning, especially if you're bound and determined to do it the hard way.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something that I've said it before from like a business standpoint, but I recently said that to a couple of employees that we hired. I think I understand what you're saying. I've got enough experience at this point in like the restaurant industry that I've seen a thing or two, and I feel like I'm finally able to, like after maybe almost 10 years, I'm finally able to maybe scratch the surface of saying, you can learn from me instead of going through this yourself. And I actually recently said that to somebody. So that's interesting. So for you, it's like you do enjoy the different stories and experiences behind life, but you also, that, and you make a point to retain that and have something to say on things that you've seen and learned.
Yep. Yeah. And some of that also is reading. If you read a lot, then that's a whole nother batch of stories that you don't have to know, but you know.
Yeah. What are you reading these days? I think I've seen. Okay, you have a hilarious TikTok. Oh man, we got to get your followers up. But I see that you had books on there recently. So like, what are you reading these days?
Right now, the book on my nightstand is a book called Lesser Beasts, and it is the history of the pig, which sounds hilarious.
No, it sounds on brand. Keep going.
It is absolutely fascinating. So the whole argument in it is that American culture is like cattle won the frontier. Cattle are for rich men who have porches to sit on.
Right.
Pigs have babies fast, and lots of them. And pigs are actually what feed poor people and homesteaders and people that are moving into new territory. And that was kind of one of the summations of the book. And then it gets into why do we consider pigs dirty and that, and it was a fascinating read.
somehow
like
sounds
you said.
extremely interesting. Yeah, like that. This is
And
why I
you're
like.
the
This is
only
why I
one
like
in
you
the
so
county
much.
who would know.
Now I might have to read that book. So like basically, this guy's like, this author knew something about history in pigs that most people don't know, and it's that pigs can reproduce more than once a year. They're like better for consumption because they're fattier and have, more satiating. They're cheaper to raise, and they go down on the history of
survive on their own.
Yeah.
A lot of other livestock is born trying to die on you, and pigs are almost semi-wild.
they're hardier.
And the promise of America, to be really honest, the thing that drew most people over here is not that America was perfect or like a perfect land. The promise has always been, you can feed your family well here. And honestly, that's still true. I mean, I'm scared sometimes, but that's still true. You can feed your family well here. And we are sitting in the basket of plenty, of more things than we could ever hope for. That's why it's the land of opportunity, because opportunity comes after you're not hungry anymore. Yeah.
Whoa.
Right, yeah, because your hierarchy of needs, right?
Yep, that hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, nothing really matters if that first one's not met.
Yeah. And I mean, as inflation keeps going a little crazy and like cost of housing, I feel like we're chipping away at that hierarchy a little bit. Directionally, I'm not excited about where we're going, but I would still say it's not bad. Yeah.
There's still food on the table.
Lots. Too much, probably.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Anyway.
That book that is.
And that's what I learned from the pig book.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
But there's 50 other books on the shelf. And
I'd love to meet that author. Like he must really hate cows.
Yeah.
Like salty pig farmer. Like the cows get all the credit and they do not deserve it.
No. Oh, yeah. Cows. Yeah. The mythology around cows in America is strong.
Yeah. Like anybody can, it's kind of like chickens. Like anybody can build a bit of an infrastructure and get a couple pigs.
Yep.
Not anybody can do that with a cow or a beef cow or a dairy cow. Like you can't just pop a shed up and throw a cow in there like you can with a pig.
Yep.
And they'll eat pretty much anything.
And they'll do fine.
Yeah. That is a really interesting point that I've never considered. Like maybe we're farming the wrong animal.
Well, I mean, other places know this. The most modern pork facility is in China at this point, probably, and they have it's a city of hogs all stacked into one thing. And
okay, so is America? So we still have an abundance of pork in this country. Like we eat a lot of pork. I don't know there's pork on every shelf and on shelves in every grocery store.
Yep.
So does that mean that so I'm curious, are we getting our pork? Is America not eating most of its own pork, or are we?
No,
we're getting that pork from.
All our pork is still from here. Okay. It's just as other countries in the world come out of grinding poverty, in the hierarchy of needs, the first thing you do when you have a little extra money is you buy a little better grade of food. Oh. So China, India, their consumption has just increased because they're bringing people out of poverty, and the first thing they buy with their extra dollars is more protein versus rice. They're not rice and beans.
Is there so is the switch from pork to beef justified though, or is that a perceived better as you move up that hierarchy of needs? Like, are you saying they switch from pork to beef, or over history?
I'm saying they can't afford any protein.
Okay.
Pork is the cheaper protein.
Yep.
or
So
the
they're
faster
optimizing.
growing.
Yep.
And they're
Way faster.
optimizing. So it went from vegetables, rice only, or the limited, super limited, and they just have gone up 10%. You know, instead of a bite of pork tonight in our rice, we have a pound of pork in our rice tonight. Yeah. And that's wealth when you're at a table with your family.
So okay, so we're not talking dairy cattle, we're talking beef cattle. So as America, do we eat more beef or more pork?
Oh, we eat, I would say total pounds of consumption. I'd have to look at the numbers. I'm guessing a little bit here. I would say that pork is more total pounds.
Do you think it's because it's often an ingredient, not so much what we're eating whole?
And bacon. It's in more things. Bacon,
like chicken nuggets, can be made from pork or whatever. Well,
and bacon. Don't forget bacon.
We're getting
and there's
sidetracked
bacon
here
too.
on pork.
No, we're not. This is very on track.
Pork. I just know a little bit. The bacon has trended up. There's all these other things because pork was lard. Lard in the 50s, lard was the biggest dollar value product that they made.
Before vegetable shortening, or is that what you mean?
Before vegetable shortening.
Before the hydrogenation process?
Before the hydrogenation process. And that's what they were aiming for.
Lard.
So they have changed that was part of the story of this guy telling is the pigs and what's popular from this lard type pig to like a Eurasian wild boar type that's semi-wild. And now if you look at them, they're not fat. They're long, lean tubes of bacon is what we've selectively bred them to be.
Oh,
and
that makes sense.
And they've, like, the look of them, if you took pictures from the 50s on up through to what they're breeding now, they look so vastly different. But to get around to that, I would say right now beef has gone super sky high, and I'm sure it's high enough right now in the store that beef is becoming... My argument always when I had beef cattle was nobody celebrates with pork.
Yeah.
There's kind of some truth to that.
So a culture gets rich enough that they can start choosing their protein source, and that's America. We can choose beef or we can choose pork. Yeah, okay.
And that's where we kind of are is good beef is good. It's considered better. It's considered cleaner. It's
like just the protein processes of it, or
which really ticks this author off. That
was his argument. Is some of that is religious based, like you've got your Muslim faction and your Jewish faction, and then your Christian faction who would follow the Old Testament laws would all be like pork is bad.
Subliminally, yeah.
And
interesting.
So that kind of
a cultural thing then.
Yeah, that's a big cultural
that's really
thing.
fascinating. Who knew there was a deeper conspiracy on pork and pork versus
pork?
Yeah, the story of the pig book went a totally different direction than I thought.
Anyway,
it's good because it's interesting.
I could geek out over many things like that.
Okay, so let's pull on that train real quick. Nick is also like that. And that's probably why you guys like each other so much. You guys are the orators of all facts nobody would know.
College of useless knowledge.
What do you? I'm a generalist, and I've been trying to find a way for that to be useful for a long time now.
Right. Yep. Okay, so that's what's on your bookshelf right now.
Yep.
What is I'm interested to know what's the most interesting book that you've read, even in the last 5 years, besides the pig book.
In the last 5 years,
is it the pig book?
No, the book that I read switching sides. I had my nice little herd of red Angus cattle. I was up to 30 head right in there, and I followed rotational grazing with that. And I've read I'm not going to say all of. I've read extensively on any of the authors talking about rotational grazing, from like the old stuff that came out in the 60s and was like Vozin's grass productivity book. But the best book in any of that, if you want to know how to raise cattle on grass and do it rotationally grazing, the one book that I have digested the most of in that field and that I have loved is a book by a man called Johann Zeitzman out of Zimbabwe. It's changed names. I'm going to just say Zimbabwe, Africa. And his book is called Man Cattle Veld. And that's their word for man cattle grass.
Okay, the rotational grazing, is that the idea of you take the cow to the food instead of bringing the food to the cow?
Yes, but it is, it would be management. There's other words that guys use called like management intensive grazing, MIG. There, other people would call it short duration, high density. The guys who are serious about it start talking about pounds per acre of cow, and they're talking about how many moves, and then they start talking about how productive you can get your land. Meaning their goal is to grow the most grass on an acre of land as they can, and working with nature to build topsoil and build. And the neat thing is, if the green movement keeps going, it is one of the only ecological ways I know to build topsoil, is with rotational grazing. Now, the limitations on it, we're up here in northern New York State. We have 6 months where, in fact, you can't grow grass. Yeah. Now, there are deer still live, so at super low densities, could you figure out how to get an animal through the winter? Maybe, but...
So because this involves you're not chopping hay, and
no,
like the cows are out eating.
This is
right
electric
outside.
wire and moving cattle.
How many...
And it sounds like a lot of work, but it is...
Yeah, how many cows can you... Because if you had more than 30 cows, at what point is it not feasible to move your cows around?
It becomes more efficient and more feasible, and it is the same amount to work, move 30 or 300 cows.
Does that depend on like how spread out your pasture is? Like, what if you have fields that are 10 miles away?
You still have to get to your fields, and that's kind of a wash. If you got pasture that's 10 miles away, then you were using diesel to haul there. Right. The bottom line is there's no more efficient way than the cow eating the grass. And
because you're avoiding equipment and the infrastructure needed to chop and store and feed your cows that way.
Yes. And some guys would argue that I waste grass because cows eat with 5 mouths.
Oh.
And
you can't control
I would actually argue that they eat with 6 mouths, 4 hooves, the pile of crap, and 1 mouth.
Right.
That's so you waste. Nobody likes to eat what they've stepped on, cows included. And so there's an argument that you would waste a lot of forage. That's where that forage that you waste is what is going to go into the ground and create more forage the next time you come through. So I would never accept the argument that I'm wasting that forage.
It's all part of the calculation, though, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it's part of the calculation.
Factor that in. Yeah.
I got to where I could look at X amount of grass and say, I can feed this many. Like, I'll make it was eyeballing. It was kind of art. It was not straight math, that how much you'd give them that day, how big of the fence. And some of the new stuff, the geared reels, So you turn the reel one time and it rolls 3 times, and you have your electric poly braid on that. PowerFlex Fence is who you want to buy your poly braid from, but
Yep.
If you were set up and you have some water points, 20 minutes to move cows, and while you move them, you inspect them, they walk right by you. They are ecstatic. This is no cowboy chasing cow experience. This is, I have food and I open a fence and
They know what to do.
They are on the program and they figure that out. Like, you could take cows that have never had that happen, and inside a week, they are on the program. They'll be waiting for you.
Their mouths are salivating.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you believe me if I told you that I had
dogs?
Oh my gosh, I had this exact same conversation with somebody else today.
Yeah.
What?
This is not something that you typically talk about twice in a day.
No. Or once in your lifetime.
Yeah,
for
we were
some
talking
people.
about. Yeah, I mean, so that's organic beef, right?
Yeah.
Did you sell
Yeah.
it as organic beef?
Grass-fed.
I did not. Marketing, I am
Paperwork.
not the world's best marketer. That if I have any shortcoming, I have typically underpriced myself in all markets, always. Partly because I've trained myself for the deal, and I don't know how you can be a guy who finds deals and sell for full price. Those are
Interesting.
and that's on housing. That's on in a lot of different parts of my life. I can teach you how to buy cheap. I am not the right guy to teach you how to get
Sell
full
high.
price.
Yeah.
Go talk to my friend Andy Jennings. He wouldn't always, but he would do a better job. And maybe Heather would actually be the better one to talk to.
Yeah.
But
Well, at least you know that about yourself.
Maybe that's why it's hard to be a good investor for the average person. It's hard to buy low and sell high.
yeah, I mean,
Maybe there's something behind that.
yeah, it's definitely counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And I can sell at market, and some of that is not. The less you need to sell, the easier it is to just, people pick up on that. That is one reason why, this sounds weird, Eric will outsell me, my son will outsell me every time. If I kind of tell him where I'm at on a deal and let him, he will not be bullied. He does not. And that's, it's fascinating how selling goes, or how making a deal goes. Mm-hmm. So that's been an interesting learning thing. Some of that is how nice of a product you're making. But with the beef, I had a good product. Some of it comes down to teaching people and making fans of a product, having them identify with you and trust you. Yeah.
That's kind of a hard balance. And if your personality isn't bent toward that, then maybe you struggle a little bit more. You need to bring somebody on who's a little bit more market savvy.
Yeah.
We are almost done with this segment, so I just want to kind of segue into the next section, which would be, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the personality thing about what we were just talking about, but also what you've got going on in your life right now, or what's new. And then we'll reset everything and come right back for that. Sound good?
Sure.
All right. Be right back, everybody. All right, we're back. I wanted to just double off of what we ended on. Personality in business, especially. And then we'll transition to what you got going on lately.
If you
But
could somehow relate that back to the pig book, that'd be great.
that'd be great. Yeah. Nick really wants to talk more about the pig book. Something that we've been learning from a lot of businessmen that we've had on is knowing your weaknesses and knowing your strengths.
Yep.
Which one of those is more important? I'm not sure. But bringing on people who...
but they're so closely related. Are they really different things?
Yeah, they might be the same thing. Understanding yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
My weaknesses are that I work too hard. Is that what you mean?
All your weaknesses are strengths, actually. I work too hard. I care too much. I am too invested. And when you can know when you're not very good at something and when you can bring somebody on or that can maybe help.
The biggest problem with to bring somebody on is as you start a small business, how do you get scale enough to have enough there to bring somebody on? Yep. I'll tell you one of my regrets in business. I'll tell you my regret. And that is back when Tyson was thinking about buying the auto shop that I ran.
Tyson is my brother, by the way, for everybody who doesn't know.
I had the idea I was building that shop and whatever, and I priced it like that. And the truth is, businesses are not that sellable. And if you have a buyer who you think is a good person, I should have given it more consideration about making that good enough. Tyson couldn't have done something else. And that's a regret. Like, I priced it and kind of said that was the price, and he moved on and went to a smaller thing and grew it and did great at it. But at that time we had kind of both grown up. We'd both come up together in creating this shop, and I should have got out of the way and made that work different. That's neither here nor there, but that is one thing I wonder about, how I could have done that. I mean, price would have been one simple thing at the time, but there could have been other things. You know, we all have different points and of what's important to us. And Tyson was ready to grow and take on more, and if you've got people who are ready to grow and take on more in your life and you don't give them more, then they go somewhere else and do something else.
And then you're standing looking, oh, man.
Well, it turns out that I outgrew that shop, and for my own family, we moved on to do something else. And that wasn't the only thing in my life. And when, in the pricing conversation in my head, I kind of phrased it like it was the only thing in my life. And if you can start one business, you can start another, and you should just learn and move on to the whatever next thing. But it's also nice to think you can cash out high, like we were talking about sometime too. But you never go broke making money. That's what I always tell myself when I'm selling cheaper, though.
Maybe that's what it is. You just got done telling about how you don't know how to price your beef well enough, and then you overpriced your business you were trying to sell.
Exactly.
No. Everybody has a different vision and different stages of their life, and most people aren't in the same ones. It's very hard to find somebody who's at the exact same place with the exact same vision, who wants the exact same things, and can just work together and make something crazy.
And that's the problem with. I mean, we're talking about selling a business, but that's also the problem in partnerships. Is you grow at different rates, and what you started with a year or two later, if you keep growing, is not where you're at then. And
dynamics change, and then that can also be like, in your case, maybe you didn't want to grow that fast, and he did. So then in 2 years you grow more. Well, now you're overwhelmed. You're at different places in your life. So it's a fluid situation that's constantly has different dynamics, and you have to be communicating them all the time.
Yeah, I think it takes, I don't know if you get lucky, or I think it just takes the right partner, and everybody's right partner is different because everyone's different. Yeah, if you're fortunate enough to find the right person, it seems to work a lot better.
And
how you do that?
I think some of it too is, like I said, you have to know when it's good, and when it's good, you keep going with it, and you can't be scared to change it. It helps if you're not in a ton of debt, because let's face it, being in a ton of debt, it keeps you doing the same thing even when you know it's a bad idea.
You're more risk averse. You're a little bit more. You're a little less likely to change the status quo because it's comfortable and it's working.
Yeah.
Whereas taking a new step to change might shake the foundation, and if it crumbles, then
then you're in for money.
Yep.
Yeah. And and I don't know, it always helps me personally to know what an exit plan is from anything. Because I don't like the trapped feeling much at all in any kind of business thing. So not looking to exit, if I know what the exit is, it gives me more freedom to keep going longer.
That's a really good point.
Which is kind of a weird...
Do you make a point to have an exit strategy in any investment or business that you get involved in, like your flip house right now? Have you thought about that?
Honestly, the exit strategy on the flip house is Ezra just makes less money for his labor, is reality, kind of what that is. Like, for me to actually lose on that would, lots of other, the world would be really bad, is kind of how I bought into that.
It's your risk assessment.
You mean like just you purchased the place for such a small amount of money that it's hard to not make money on it, you mean?
I mean, I purchased it right enough that I'm pretty happy with the not pretty happy. I'm happy. Okay. The old advice I got is the day after you sign the papers, you still need to be like, we did it.
Yeah.
And
promise you don't know that until the day
advice,
after.
This is real estate advice. There's this thought, and this goes back to some of buy, sell high. Do I get top dollar? I tend not to view it as how my brain works. I make my money when I bought it. The money's already made. The rest is details. Like, I made money when I bought it. I took my wife out to eat when I bought it. And we'll go out to eat when I sell it, too. Don't get me wrong. You got to have some celebrations in life.
Right.
But, I was happy. And if you're going to buy investment stuff, like your personal home, if your wife's happy, you're going to be happy. Whatever. But if it's just an investment, then you should be happy the next day. And if you're not, then maybe it wasn't a good enough deal. And some of that's relative. Like, how much money are you going to make? I don't know. I've never gone backwards on a real estate buy and sell deal, and I've done a few of them. A few's being generous. I'm at like 10 now, which is no big thing, but no small thing either. The how rough you can see them and know what they can be is the biggest deal, and then knowing what you can update. Eric, my son, and his buddies will all tell you that I tell them to buy real estate. Don't buy that stupid expensive truck. Buy a piece of land or buy something. They still buy the trucks. I don't know what it is about the stupid trucks.
Because they're shinier.
They are
why.
shiny.
They go
Unless that truck earns you money, I will be driving my 4-door car to work.
Like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett has got like a Toyota Corolla or something like that. He's like, it's a good car.
I keep telling people to buy Toyota Corollas, and they go and buy Chevy Malibu.
whatever. XL something
No,
fancy.
Chevy Malibu Ecos, electric.
Oh, right.
Please.
Just get a Corolla.
For 40 grand.
Just buy a
Corolla.
Civic. Yeah, something. Right. Oh, man.
Yeah, because 50 miles of the gallon on a regular, Toyota Corolla is not good enough.
Yeah.
Got to get the hybrid.
Or the guy who bought a brand new Harley and told me it was for the fuel mileage.
Oh, good grief. Yeah. No, it's for the comfort.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So do you think that, in your real estate ventures, do you credit your success to your ability, your knowledge and research and the hard work you've put into picking good deals? Do you credit it to it's just hard to lose money in real estate if you're somewhat, smart about it? Like, what do you think is the reason for always coming out net positive?
Well, I'm geriatric millennial here, so I bought my first place before 2008, and then it was just hard not to make money. Things have kind of changed. A bank's willing, if you're young right now, the bank's willingness to loan you money is not what it was. Mm-hmm. And getting money out of a bank, you got to have the job and you got to do the things and you got to, those creative things, like having a roommate or, I don't even know. The numbers are changing fast and real estate is not what it the entry point keeps getting higher. And I mean, when I was 18, I went and got a job and worked a year just to prove I was a good boy to the bank.
Just to get that credit score.
To get my first loan, to buy my first triplex. And the truth is, I'm sitting here saying I'm smart. If you looked up that triplex today, I would have been money ahead on my total net worth. That was in Inglewood, Florida. If I'd have never done another real estate deal and sat on that triplex the last 20 years. So
interesting.
Yeah. So that's the not hard way to go for real estate to do well is if you just buy it and just hold it, it's going to do fine. Mm-hmm. If you can upgrade something or do something faster, that's fine too. But that's also, it's like the investing advice. It's easy to have your 401k do great if you start at 18. Mm-hmm. Those all look beautiful. If you start at 36 on your 401k,
yeah,
it might not be that great. I mean, it's better than nothing, better than most people.
Yeah.
But I started partly because my parents were there and said and got the vision. Partly because I was born an old man, my wife says, and no fun and never have been. Yeah.
Just grind it out.
It's because you make her paint.
That's right. I make her paint.
Make her paint door thresholds and trim and all that exterior stuff.
Come have fun with me at work.
Worse, you make her scrape it first, probably. Oh, that's the worst.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. No more ninjas these days, right? No income, no job. What's the A stand for?
No income.
No job applicant.
Always.
Like back before when it was so easy. They would give a loan out to anybody and then
it was before 2008 in Florida. It was
a cake
genius. It was just it was so easy and you just bought it and the market was going up and you could do so many things. It was crazy. But then 2008 happened and that's one of the things. So looking forward right now, trying to figure out what the housing market is doing right now, I don't know. Yeah. It's really weird. Mm-hmm. The entry point's hard. The interest rates are hard if you're a young guy and you're trying to get your first foot in the door. But there's no inventory.
Right.
The no inventory is the one part that, I keep hearing some people saying it's going to go down, it's going to go down. I need to know where the more inventory is coming from to go down. And what I saw is the builders are smarter than they were. the builders I was around the last little bit, they've already adjusted their numbers down. They aren't putting themselves leveraged out there like they did in 2008. So I don't think the builders are building excess inventory, that there's going to be some change. Now, I think, as I understand it, the commercial side of real estate's doing some weird things, and I don't know know anything about it. I just know that there's some weirdness going on, and maybe office space in the city isn't worth what it used to be.
Right. Yep, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I think. Like, we work in, like, my company's in the city, and a lot of the people that we know and the people that we talk to are saying the exact same thing about the commercial property industry, I guess you could call it. The people are more willing to diversify what that space is supposed to be for.
Yeah.
Because
they would like it
they're
rented.
taking big losses because everybody's working from home.
Yeah.
That must be a COVID thing.
Yeah.
So, is the reason that there's not as much inventory, is that a result of short-term rentals?
So I have a theory on this, and this is my unpopular theory. We could get roasted for this, but my theory, and I'll throw it out there, is it is a sign of the times of America. There are many drivers. The one driver I've never heard anybody talk about is this one. Because you're divorced, because you're not good at relationships, because the family is coming apart, every one of those people needs a door. If the nuclear family was doing well, then one door serves more people.
Interesting.
And when he gets divorced and she gets divorced and they're 45, he has a house, she has a house, the kids have a house, the kids probably are in dysfunction, and they all need separate apartments. So the ability to do well as people means we all want our separate space. And that, I think that could be like a 10 or 15% driver,
yes,
on the market. Okay. Anyway, fascinating flyer idea for you for the day is our dysfunction is actually a big part of the driver on the how many doors we need for real estate.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that, but so we're not building fast enough for the dysfunction in families. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
It's kind of a root cause, or like what we're seeing now is symptoms of a bigger problem.
Yeah, and I mean, the other big problem is regulation. Like, if you could build whatever you want, wherever you want, then there would be a lot more doors, because there just would be. Every zoning law is based on me trying to keep my property worth a lot and to keep poor people somewhere else.
Could a variable also be less trade workers? You think that that's trending the wrong way also, for maybe a percentage of the variant?
In northern states, when you go to the South, the trade workers just speak Spanish.
Okay.
And that's why we have immigration. Don't be fooled. Nothing would get built in Florida without guys who speak Spanish.
Yeah.
That's what I observe.
Cheaper labor costs.
They'll do it.
Also, nobody wants to do those jobs. Is that it?
They'll do it, and they're happy to do it, and
they're good at it, and they have a high work ethic.
Well, they'll learn the trade, and what I've seen is I have watched with my own eyes. Labor was Mexican or Latino, because it's many versions of that. Mm-hmm. I've watched it go from labor to boss to business owner, and that's in 20 years. And in Florida today, if you're a white kid and you want to get hired as a mason, you're going to ruin the vibe on somebody's concrete crew, because they all speak Spanish and know what's going on. So I don't even think some of those crews always hire people that are like them. Yeah. And I don't even think the door is open to some of those trades.
Interesting.
Because it's completely changed. It's completely switched, which is good. And they're doing good by their families in those trades. Like, none of those trades are making low dollars. They're all making okay money. So are they? That's the argument, is they do it cheaper somehow. But I'm not. I think they're just doing it. They're not cheaper. I mean,
just from experience.
Yeah.
Are these trades crews are just, the workforce for a legally owned business? Because I can see the employees who may not be kosher legally, still making good money, but making $25 an hour is great money when they're sending it back home. But really, these days that's $40 an hour work. And so that's $15 more in the pocket of the owner. And so there's some, taking advantage going on while still under the illusion that they're making good money. Do you think that that's happening? It's just padding the pocket of the owner. It's a business tactic to make more money on the owner's part. And it works because they probably do feel like they're making good money. But nowadays you can make really, really good money.
Yeah, I don't know how much. I think that happens some. I'm not saying it doesn't. I do think that I think the struggle is, if you can get good people who answer their phone and show up and do the job well, you in fact pay them and are happy to pay them however they need to be paid. And maybe some guy does that for cheap for a while, but his son who went to American school isn't going to do it for cheap. So there's some time periods in there. But that's also that 20-year process. Labor, business owner, like, that's what I'm seeing. If you learn the trade from your dad at 16, you're gonna make it better than your dad had it if you stay, or try to, or pick something up. And some of those are, so the first gen, I'm not saying they aren't getting the 25 instead of the 40. By second gen in,
they're doing well.
They're getting paid.
Yeah. The kids are always, not to make it sound any kind of way, but like, your kids are always smarter. Well, like they'll know their way. They'll know how to do better.
They'll know how to do better. They'll know what the rates are. Yeah. They talk to more people. Their English is better. That's what America does. We assimilate people, and by second generation, they're doing well. And first generation has its struggles. But that's why I love a good immigration story, is you can see it. The first generation struggles some, and it's a little tough, but we eat good.
That's why we're here.
Yep. And then second generation in, third generation in, they still know who they are. They're grounded enough to not be sucked into the worst of American culture, and they do well.
I guess the biggest reason why I was wondering if that had something to do with it is just because all the builders that I know have 10 people that want them to build a house for them, and they just can't do it. Yep. And then from the buyer side, I have friends who live in Connecticut who have good jobs, can't buy a house, too expensive. So, like, at what point is the tilting to be inventory versus demand? I don't know. It seems like
we're having this conversation in rural New York, where, right, let's be honest, you can buy a lot of, like, in comparison to Connecticut or a lot of other places, you can buy a veritable mansion in rural New York.
Right.
And in comparison, man, if you're in some of the major markets, it is tougher.
And would the market ever respond to people being like, I can't afford it? Or is it just kind of, because I'm no expert, but Dave Ramsey's like, who says it's coming down? Everybody's saying it's going to come down. Who says? Why? And so that kind of makes me think maybe there's just no upper limit and it just continues to go that way.
Yeah. I mean,
inflation's a driver. The economy's a driver. Supply and demand is the biggest thing right now. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister in Canada, was talking about how they're hundreds and hundreds of thousands of houses short of what they need every year. So, like, how do you,
It's hard to predict. Like, people, even the smartest people get into trouble. I had a my finance professor in college told us a story about in the 80s, he bought a second home on an 18% interest rate and lost everything.
Okay.
My finance professor
told you that.
And then you immediately unenrolled in that class.
And he was a really smart guy. Like, I know it sounds like, well, what was he doing? He was a really smart guy. I mean, and even he fell prey to that time in the 80s when things were horrible.
I know some stories from the 80s.
Yeah. I just don't think that people are even the average person is equipped to know what they're doing when the housing market goes sideways. Like, yeah, I think, it's interest rates right now are 8%. People are.
That's a big struggle. How much? Okay. It's easy to say there's no opportunity. And I hear the no opportunity talk a lot. Mm-hmm. But I also know that it's still America and there's still gobs of opportunity, and it just might not look how we want it to look. And if you're wanting it to look like $50 land or $200 or $1,000 or whatever number your great grandfather bought land at, then I wish I could get some of that. It's gonna look different. It's gonna be different, and maybe it's a different.
The returns haven't changed, but the barrier to entry is a lot higher. That's the problem.
Because wages don't seem to be climbing at the same rate.
Right. The barrier to entry is a lot harder. Yes. You're right now. If you buy land right now and you wait on it the same way your grandpa did, you're going to be just as well off 30 years from now as he was in his time. But the barrier to entry now is much harder. Salaries are down. Prices are up.
Yep. Let me just take care of a camera battery. I'll reset them. We'll keep going because I want to talk more about the kind of the base level economics that we're talking about.
Yep.
So hold that thought, and we'll be right back, everybody. All right, we're back. We were talking base level economics with the housing market in particular.
Emphasis on the base.
But before that, we were talking about pigs.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
I want to hear why New York is a great place to live.
So the backstory to that is we were kind of done where we were living, and we had lived with my grandparents for 10 years, and they had moved on to a stage where they needed more help. So my wife has family in Florida, and we spent a winter in Florida and kind of eyeballing things saying, could this work? And what I've found is New York State does have high taxes, but Florida has its own problems. The insurance deals going on in Florida are real, and they are expensive and crazy.
Are you talking about the
home insurance?
Hurricanes?
The hurricanes.
I just saw that.
There's a roofing scam deal there that is costing the insurance companies a ton of money, and they are
not going to cover
jacking
anymore.
Rates up, and it's, I mean, whatever my tax bill in New York State was for my farm, 100 acres, and the house, for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, quarter-acre lot, same kind of value house, they wanted more for insurance than I paid in taxes in New York State. And then there was still a tax bill in Florida, And the tax bill in Florida when I was a kid at like 1996 was low. It has gone up a lot. Florida is not as cheap. And then you have to live in Florida in the summer. Anyway, New York State, it is so beautiful here. You drive around, it is green. It is Florida also separates the classes of people. Meaning, if you're rich, you live here and you do this. New York State, there are clean, poor people in New York State. There are not in Florida. Like, the classes are separate, and it is very different. That was my take. I also found, so there's all this talk about regulatory things being rough in New York. Like, it's hard to do business. And Florida's wide open for business. What I actually experienced was Florida is wide open to do business if you're a rich person and you want to do big business. The regulatory stuff for like home building because of the hurricanes, the overreach of your county. Here in New York State, it's our little townships that we interact mostly, and those townships are full of people that are just like me, like the guys driving the plow trucks, and the building inspector is a guy I know, like, and it takes some time to know those people, but they are not different people. In Florida, it was all at the county level. You were a number. Your opinion did not matter. It was bureaucrats all the way up. You had to do it the county way or the highway.
Can you tell the water heater story?
Yeah, the water heater.
Well, real quick. Okay, we'll get to the water heater. But is it because of population density at all? Is that part of it?
Part of it is population density, is the conclusion I came to.
Okay.
So like
rural versus
urban. Like if you lived in the suburb of Rochester, you
might deal with some of the same.
You might deal with some of the same things. So I found that I couldn't. It was hard for me to differentiate what was rural versus urban. We were in the Tallahassee area. That's where my wife's family lives, and yeah, that was. I did not like that. So anyway, we were redoing this house, and like, I can change a water heater. This is not that complicated. And because I'm out of state with an out of state license, and we were going to sell this house, house flippers are bad if you don't know, and we are of the devil, and you shouldn't ever redo a house for someone who has no vision and make any money on that.
If you're from out of state.
So they had enacted the law that you had to have an inspection and a certified plumber change your water heater to have the right paperwork. And so a water heater that should have cost, in reality, this is a microism of what I believe regulation does. To get this water heater, I ended up paying $1,850, and I called around. And do you think I asked the man if he did it with the inspection and everything beforehand, when that's what I was needing, was all those things? And the dirty scoundrels did not give me the inspection when that was the only thing I asked. They just changed my water heater.
Just like you would have done.
Just like I would have done.
Because you weren't a certified
$1,800.
You're not a certified plumber.
So I had to call the building inspector and turn them in to get the paperwork. It was a nightmare. And rules for thee, but not for me type thing. And it's a stupid rule. Like, water heaters are not that complicated. But everything in Florida, everybody in Florida that I dealt with on the building side was looking for the next sucker to screw. It is kind of the vibe that I got the whole time I was there. And I'm not saying New York, like in New York, the vibe is we're all going along to get along, and we need to make a living. and I don't begrudge anybody making a living, but $600 to $1,800 is not living money, and that's how that was the things that turned me off to Florida was a deal like that where just you're killing me here, and you know, maybe that's how they made their system, and I'm a dirty out of towner Yankee that shouldn't be able to make any money there. Anyway,
you were you were a New York Yankee.
Yeah,
so
under the guise of, well, we need to make sure that people who aren't from our area don't know our codes and our building codes, like that they get it done right. And then the local vendors are like, all right, let's charge twice as much.
Yeah, the local vendor comes in and does exactly what you would have done, charges you twice as much.
Did it matter?
Doesn't give the
paperwork.
Yeah, side note, question for me. We can stop recording because this is a Nick question, but it has no consequence at all, but I find it fascinating. Did it matter if it was an electric water heater versus a propane water heater?
Did not.
That's ridiculous.
This was an electric. Just
that is
for the record, it
insane.
was an electric water heater.
Yeah, or a gas. Yeah, that's
just where we're going.
My 5 or 6 or 7-year-old kid could change an electric water heater.
Yeah,
like that's insane.
Anybody with any skill. Anyway, that was
okay. So here's my question for you then.
I love that story.
Again, rural versus urban. I'm getting back to that a little bit. Yeah. In rural settings, when you have a business, you can't do that.
No, you cannot.
As soon as you do that, you're out of business.
Yes.
And isn't that the best part about being in a small community? It's not like people, I mean, I guess people in small communities still take advantage of people. Sure. Yes. Not if you want to be successful. Not if you have a reputation to hold. If you've got 30,000 people in a county and you rely on their business, you can't go upcharging a few people and word gets out and you can, you know, where when you go to a city, like a big city, and I lived in big cities for 5 years, you can tell when you walk in there, they don't care about you. There's no personal connection. You're just a number, kind of like what you were saying before. And this is what we charge, and we'll never see you again.
Yeah, and that is like, why do I want to raise my kids in a rural setting? Like, the difference there is big. And I mean, I know you can make your own community in the urban setting and have those protections. It felt not very fun. Like, if I'd have spent 20 years in Tallahassee, that's not how the story would have gone.
You would have grown community, and you would have found people you trust.
And I would have figured that out differently. Heck, if I wasn't going to sell that house, I'd have just broke the law and changed my own hot water heater. That's the reality. And every other.
How dare you do things the right way?
Right way. Breaking the law.
I've had questions about things that you may or may not need a permit for, and had people who would know the answer say like, I don't drive by there very much.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's just different.
Yeah, and that's a problem for a rule follower like me. Because
I will say it's better to get the permit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan of doing it the right way. Like,
whatever that looks like. Air quotes.
Air quotes. I mean, I did it the right way. It cost me $1,800, and I'm still smarting over it.
How many years ago was this?
2 years ago, basically.
/ yesterday in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be.
I wrote their name down in my black book and
my journal.
Crossed it off.
You journal at night. The water heater, because I'm never going to lose it.
Yeah.
No.
How was his funeral?
That's right.
That's crazy.
But to get back though, if I struggle with the political party process or the American dream, or like, I like a good even playing field where we all know the rules of the game we're playing, and they're the same rules for everybody. And I feel like the erosion of that is going on. The flip side is, if I was counseling a young guy, like when it comes to the American dream or buying real estate, I know that the goalposts are moving. I am confident you can figure them out. That is the truth. Like, that's the truth. Like, don't get all your money in order to marry the girl and have the kids Like, that's not the order it goes in. It wasn't the order it went in for me. And I'm not saying that you don't have like some struggle ahead of you, but marry the girl. Don't be scared of kids. Like, anybody I've ever talked to, and for my own self, my kids are a blessing. And if you marry the right girl, your kids are going to be a blessing too. Like, you're going to like your kids. And so marry the girl, figure out the money, have the kids first, and then you'll figure out the money. You'll be motivated to figure out the money, figure out the real estate. The other thing is, like, having kids with less culturally, everybody wants their kids to have everything. And I do too. I could have made more money at any time my kids were young, and we would have spent more money on them, and I would have been happy to. They aren't worse kids for growing up with less money. They might be better kids. Like, so if we're talking about worrying about the future, worry about a nice girl, and the future, you'll figure it out. Like, that's of the hope for America. I think you can figure it out.
So the American dream lies not in financial prosperity, but the nuclear family.
I mean, it's nice to have some material things,
or just security at a base
security
at a base level.
At a base level that there's a home.
I've always wondered if there is that notion that, you know, people want to generate a career before they have children, and we're just not ready, and like delaying children because of this. You need to have a career established and be able to, you know, pay for it or whatever. Yeah, I can see why, as parents who, like, now that I have children, you always want to give them the world.
Yeah.
I don't believe that you really know what that feels like before you have kids. So I don't buy that. Yep. I think that you just want your parenthood to be easier. You can just buy more stuff. I think it's an effort to make your parenting easier. It's easier if you have money. But it's under the guise that it's for the children. But the fallacy is that you don't know
it's actually selfishness.
Yeah, I do.
Based.
I don't think that you can actually know what it's like to want to give your kids the world if you haven't had them yet. If you haven't held them in your hands and looked at their faces and loved them yet. You know what I mean?
Then I'd call you on the selfishness then. Like,
right.
I'm not saying I wasn't scared, because 100% I was happy. But doing things in right order has its thing. Like, if I send anything to my kids, when I see a birth announcement, like we're pregnant and people are celebrating, I always send those things, like those TikToks or those memes, to my kids. I send it to every young guy in my phone, because, like, you know, when you're doing things right, you can be scared, but you're also going to be happy. And the thought of stealing that joy because you don't have a career is crazy. Like, if you marry the girl and then you find out you're pregnant, it's a good day. It'll be all right. It'll work out. We can worry in the middle, but
right. Is it because the baseline threshold, like you were saying before, is higher, Nick? Do you think that's why? Is that what's scaring kids?
I think that's scaring a lot of young men.
Right.
Living in your mom's basement.
Exactly.
That phenomena is because things are a little scary, or like, how does that work? But like, I see it among my son's friends and the 20-year-olds is they're not. Is it worth putting themselves out there? And that's what I'd say is it's worth putting yourself out there, and you'll figure it out. Like that, you'll figure it out. It'll be okay.
Fear of failure and rejection seems to be holding people back.
The failure part
and
of it is
keeping them
big.
in the basement.
Well, that's what keeps them
secure. It's warm. It's comfortable.
It is. and we're so able to make alternate realities now, like the gaming reality, the porn reality, like those are all
substitutes for things
those are
that
all
matter.
crutches for things that matter, like real relationship and connection.
That can be filled artificially.
Yeah. And that's what I'd say is those crutches are more effective or more lifelike now than they've ever been.
Yeah, and also programmed to keep your attention, programmed to keep you docile, programmed to keep you lazy, and programmed to keep you in the basement.
Yeah.
Because it's a money game.
Oh, and attention is money now.
Yep.
That's the new economy. Attention is money. I haven't figured out how to capitalize on that at all, but yeah.
I personally think that if you keep at your super cool, look, so yeah, okay. Ezra and I have a TikTok. All right, let's just get it out there. We're how old are you?
I'm a creator. I'm 42.
Okay, I'm 30. We're not like 18 years old with our TikToks. Don't make fun of us. I mean,
you guys are doing the dances.
I get on TikTok to watch Ezra's videos. That's why I have one, and Ezra has a TikTok because he makes awesome, hilarious videos about a 42-year-old man and what his life looks like, and it's amazing. I think that if you kept at it, like you'd have 1 million followers. And yeah, I think that your TikTok is awesome.
Well, thanks for the vote of confidence there.
It's great.
That mostly came about as like a way. If you had 300 people come to hear you speak anywhere, like that's the small beginning power side of any of the internet stuff that's really cool. That is not a small thing. So I can look at it some days and be like, why am I putting any energy into this? The truth is we have influence and any of those things, like if you don't use your influence, then what was it there for? And that's kind of how I view the TikTok thing is I'm trying to use that influence sometimes just to be funny, but sometimes also to, encourage or put ideas into people's head. Planting a seed of an idea is a good thing. Whether that's a business or buying land or getting married. If I tell you you could do it and you do it, I'm happy watching you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because we're kind of the same way. There's such a production behind like podcasting that I'm learning about, obviously, over the last, 3 months or whatever it's been. And one of the guys said, like, don't be discouraged if your following isn't there. And it's not really been our desire. Like we have to get to X amount of subscribers and views and whatever. But he goes, imagine if you had a room full of 100 people that were listening to what you're saying.
Yeah. And
that's a lot of people.
That's a pretty achievable thing, but that's also a lot of influence. And that's the old 90% of people will watch, 5% will comment, and whatever those numbers break down. But like your engagement, like the group of people that watch that you get to speak into them and they hear what you're saying is influence. It's not nothing. It's something. And that doesn't mean you're, Mr. Beast of the world, but here's something.
We're gonna have Mr. Beast on next week, didn't you know?
Yeah, he's our next guest.
Hey, the knowledge he has is wild.
Yeah, no. I think that most of the time, if you have some kind of influence, and that can even be in your social circles on personal relationship levels, it needs to be meaningful what you're saying to people.
Yep.
Generally speaking.
Yep.
So like if you're putting out a TikTok, then you get to decide what kind of influence you're going to have or what you're going to say and how that's going to impact people.
Yep.
Because there's a big counterculture move. I think that in an encouraging way. I think it's easy to look at the internet and social media and see the negatives of it. But there's also a rising counterculture to some of the stuff that's going on that's very encouraging. So hopefully we can do something like that.
Yeah.
I got to check out your TikTok.
Yeah.
It's like everyday stuff.
I am jealous of your ability to curate your info. Like I am not like I video it. I might do it. Like if I'm saying something and there's a punchline or something, I might do it 3 times or 4 times. But I am not editing. I am not doing any of those things.
Raw unfiltered is the best.
Yeah, raw unfiltered
For that
version.
kind of thing, yeah.
Partly just a time commitment thing. Like, is there a version of it if it blew up for some reason? Yeah, you probably could. At the point where it's just you talking to the people that follow you, and it's, I don't know where that numerical threshold is. Yeah. I can tell you where it is. Can I afford somebody good to help me?
Ezra, I think for this kind of thing,
that's where it is. The minute I can afford somebody good to help me,
I think
that's how you know.
I really believe that your value is in authenticity, and the more you edit, the further away you get from your best product on that kind of platform. I think that you do what you do best and don't worry about editing it. Or I think that's where your value lies. I think you're just the perfect person for that. Yeah,
unfiltered, raw.
Yeah,
unfiltered, raw, straight facts.
Yeah, you are the most entertaining when you are yourself, and smart and intelligent, and I wouldn't touch it.
And you have a very inquisitive mind. I really adore that about a lot of people that I know.
Okay,
Nick has that. That's a weird way to say it. I
adore
Nick so much.
And I adore you. You adore Brock? We have an adoring triangle.
I'm so happy Brielle could get you a brother-in-law you adore. That was
the whole point. That wants to learn things just so that they know them and can get better at them. Yep. That's pretty cool. My personality is such that if I get into something, I want to do it to the
mastery.
Yeah, it's a sickness.
The mastery part of it, like somewhere in there, I get bored. Not that I don't want to see it through to some, like, you know where it is? Once I fully understand it,
it's time to move on.
It's time to move on. Like, it's time to move on. Because that's actually where the straight mastery of it never really excites me that much. The new idea, let's take that out and look at it, and that's fascinating.
See how it works. But as soon as you know how it works, it's tough.
Well, I mean,
whatever. I don't need
reoccurring things.
Yeah.
But I admire the doggedness to do something, like to keep doing it and get the nuances. And JJ Redick and LeBron James have been doing this podcast thing in shorts.
That's his coach now.
It is his coach, you're right. But that has been, hearing them talk about their mastery of their sport has been super enjoyable. Like, I played basketball through high school, so I have like some little understanding of it, but their mastery of it and just hearing their takes has been really, really fun. I hate the Lakers, but I guess I gotta like them because.
Wait, do you like the Kobe Lakers though?
I never liked Kobe.
Oh, no.
I mean, I appreciated who he was.
Go away. Big Kobe fan, so it's okay.
I mean, he had his place. I mean.
Wait, so you like basketball? Like, you're a sports person?
I like basketball. Yeah. I pay attention to
the playoffs,
basketball and football. Yeah. No, I pay attention to basketball.
What's your team?
Yeah. So if you don't like the Lakers, who is your team?
I was so tore up this year.
Knicks?
No. The Knicks have a soft spot.
Rough.
But that was from like way back, John
Patrick
Stark.
Ewing.
Back in the day, the bad boy Knicks. They were as close as you could get to the bad boy Pistons.
My father-in-law is like that. He's like, Ewing, that's my guy.
But right now, I loved the run this year. I thought if the Nuggets had made it, that they posed more matchup problems for Boston. I still think Boston probably would have won, but the somehow matchup wise, man, they just had the Mavs number. There was no question.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It was a rough.
Luka got exposed a bit.
He did. I mean, he still got the numbers he needed.
Yeah.
Like
defensively, though, he was kind of exposed.
Liability. Yeah.
He always has.
Well,
when you're on that
you
stage.
know, it's fun, and I'm like you. Like the YouTube that I watch is of people who have honed in on one thing their entire life until they have completed mastery, and now they get to tell you. Me, I'm like a jack of all trades, and then I wish I was good at all of them, but I'm just not. But I think there's so much good things to learn, and it's interesting to see the perspective of what it takes to master one thing. It's very hard to do. It's only so many hours in the day.
Yep.
You can't be a master at all things. We're going to lose feed. I want to do one more segment if we can, if you guys have time. But I want to talk a little bit about, I have a couple hard-hitting questions here for you when we come back. But also talk a little bit more about mastery and what we can learn from people like that.
Okay.
Cool? Cool. All right. Be right back, everybody.
And we're back.
And we're back.
Yeah. The YouTube mastery thing, like, that's hilarious. I went down a rabbit hole like a couple of years ago where I spent like...
Wait, and then you were learning all about pigs?
No, not pigs. Like so my mastery YouTube watching fix or whatever is furniture builders.
Okay.
There's
Fine
one page.
Woodworking.
Okay.
That makes sense.
There's a YouTube channel called Ishitani Furniture.
Oh.
And he's a Japanese furniture maker.
That
get him in here.
And
nice stuff.
The way that Brock would do it, this guy, like, he doesn't just video himself making furniture in the middle of nowhere. Like, he lives like a monk, it seems like, from his videos. He like spends just as much time on the setup and the production as he does making the furniture in the videos. And the furniture is beautiful, but it's so good that you can't, like, honestly, you couldn't decide what's better, the furniture he's making or the video, the quality of the video. Like, you couldn't. They're both. And the furniture is gorgeous.
Sometimes
the videography
the production
is just that good. Yeah, and then they're addicting. When you see true mastery like that, I mean, you can get people to watch you make furniture.
Yeah,
like that's what it is. Like, there's something to it. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You think you're a master of anything, Ezra? What have you mastered in your life? Like, what have you spent the most time doing? What do you love doing? What do you find worth mastering? Anything?
Man, that's an interesting
question. Too humble to say. Don't be humble.
No, I've struggled with that in reality. Like, partly because I am a generalist in a lot of different ways. And so, I mean, the truth is, truck driving is the thing I've spent more time doing than anything. Like, I have my 10,000 hours in for sure, and I'm a good truck driver. I can lay tracks down for the plow truck to follow, and I can take a truck wherever you want to put a truck. If it's,
Have you seen those roads in like those next to a mountain and like carbon? You could do that.
I haven't done that specific thing exactly because that's more northeast, like Washington, Oregon, that way.
Ice road truckers.
Have you seen the trucking simulators?
I haven't seen a trucking
guys that
simulator.
sit behind a screen and drive a truck, but like the road they're driving on is like this perilous mountain that no semi in real life could ever like make a turn. And they've got the truck like every wheel but one is off the mountain. But if they can make that turn, they'll get it back up. And like, could you do that in real life?
Yes, I have never spent any time in a simulator. I'm sorry.
Real life.
Anyway, that's awesome.
I can back up to milk houses for 5 years and not smash the back of a truck.
Hey, that's pretty impressive.
Really cool.
I was also a professional driver.
You were.
I was. Yep. And I tell my wife all the time whenever she's yelling at me in the car. Hey, I used to get paid to drive.
You know what I tell my wife now?
Stop gasping in an intersection.
Actually drives most of the time when we're just going somewhere.
Really?
Partly because she gets a little car sick.
Okay.
And she prefers it. But I just tell her, I drive for money, babe.
Yeah.
Like, really, I
Let me know
drive
if there's
for
a
money.
mountain you need me to skirt around.
That's right. Otherwise, if we're just running around in the four-wheeler, have at it, baby.
Yes, but the reason I said that is because I was 5 years as a police officer, and I never got in a crash.
You never did. No fender
Perfect
bender,
mileage,
no.
nothing.
Okay, that's good.
And-
How many? Like, what's the actual normal? Like,
How many miles?
no, like. If you talk to 100 guys that have been a police officer for 5 years,
Is there,
90
is
of them
there-
have
is there
a crash or not?
Is there a male-female split?
I'm kidding.
Oh no.
Okay. I don't think. Okay, so we had a mileage system. So if you went over, I think it was 2,000 miles without an accident, you get like a day off.
Okay.
Something cool like that. And
How many miles?
I want to say it was 2,000, maybe
I
more.
wish my employer had done that deal.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. Kind of makes you want to drive nicely and safe. So I don't know how many people. I don't think a lot of people would go 5 years without anything, because even
Driving so much.
I mean, I don't know what the exceptions were for, like, if somebody hit you and it wasn't your fault, like if that takes your miles away. But we're talking 100-mile-an-hour code 3 through a city.
Yep.
That means sirens are on.
So no big deal.
What does that mean? Code 3.
Oh, sorry. Yes, lights and sirens. Code 3.
Okay.
Business.
Sorry,
You're not
guys.
supposed to
Sorry.
break the speed limits without being code 3,
That's
correct?
Correct, unless you're in the performance of your duties, which seems like a very vague thing.
I.e. late to work.
Like when you're late to work or you have to pick up your coffee. Anyway, so,
sorry. Go ahead. So yeah, you
sorry.
you take pride in the work you've put in, and you're a great truck driver, which is another fascinating thing that people don't think about, is that is a legitimate thing. Like, we need truck drivers, and you're a darn good one.
Yeah. The problem with the truck driver thing is it is I can scare myself a little bit sometimes. Like, there's nothing healthy about being a truck driver. Like,
What do you mean?
when you get in a truck and you're like, so I've reached, like, people talk about nirvana or like out of body experience. Well, being perfectly safe, like when you are in a zone driving, and I don't know if you've hit that ever or you even know what I'm talking about, but a few times in my life, I've hit this zone driving where, like, I am there, I'm fully aware, but
you pass through a city that you don't remember.
no, that's just tiredness, and I know what that is. No, I'm just talking the fully
I've done that a
aware.
few times.
The fully aware part is the thing. The driving tired is a whole nother conversation.
Well, you have to be pretty much aware if you didn't crash. I would.
I think what you're referring to, some people like runners in the runner high. You're talking about the trucker's high.
It's
That's a real
something
thing?
like it. I
don't know if
I
we should
haven't
phrase it
really
that way.
talked to enough other guys because this is kind of a little weird to talk
Yeah,
about
literally,
exactly.
We're entering some weird
Anyway.
space here.
This is a safe space. I want to hear what you have to say. Keep going.
Yes.
Just a few times where, like, you're in the truck and you're going and you're in a zone and, like, you're aware and it's just running and doing its thing, and, like, you're eating the miles and it's just okay. Like, it's just you're there and the miles are there to get 8 and they're just going, and it's like, and not like absence of the next thing you need to do, kind of, or like you don't have anything else to think about. Your mind is kind of as blank as it could ever get, and you're just sending it.
The next thing you have to do is to drive the next mile.
Yeah. Wow. It's a little weird, but
That's really cool.
and that's not like I've had that experience like 2 or 3 times, and I like it. But I like, if I could sign up to do it again, I would. But it's not something I'm telling you. Oh, I do this and this and this, and then I feel like that. I'm just saying,
Wow.
in 15 years of trucking, I've felt that a few times, and it's.
Do you think? Okay. Do you think that is a spiritual experience? Have you thought about that? Like, what the heck that was?
I have, like Zen,
bliss.
I don't know, Nirvana. What or
trucking is Nirvana.
Or like, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. Like
I don't know what to call it. Or
God sitting in the passenger seat with you. Like what do you what have you concluded?
What is my mind on?
Yeah.
That's the weird thing. Is it wasn't necessarily that I was like, because I spend plenty of time. The problem with trucking is your mind is your enemy because you spend too much time with your mind and filling it. And there's some guys who can never run with the radio. Like they always run with the radio. I find myself. Like, don't get me wrong, I listen to music and I like music, but I'll run without the radio for a day and it doesn't really bother me. Mm-hmm. Where, like, some guys, if they don't have their radio, they're going to quit. Like, I'm finding a new place to work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You probably saw that with police as they're cruising around, like, there's some guys that always need something. There's some that can just kind of be there and in the moment. And it's
interesting.
Or did you run with a partner that much or not really?
No, we were single cars mostly. Yeah.
You know, I never ran with. Every now and then, if you're doing a trainer and training somebody in the truck, you'd take them on your route, and that was always it's supposed to be less of a day, but it always ended up being more of a day to have somebody else with you.
Yeah.
Versus just running your route.
There's definitely mastery to truck driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a high stress, very difficult thing to do, especially when you're pulling those. That's my kid.
Some people just have a knack for it too. Like when I worked at a furniture store way back in the day, I would go out on installs, and the guy that was the driver and head installer, like there was one driveway in Syracuse that had to have been like a quarter mile long, and it had winded every which way, and the confidence with which he backed that trailer off of a main road, I'll have you, down that driveway, it's like we're hauling a kitchen in there, so it's like a 20-foot trailer, however long it is. And the way that he confidently backed that thing down the driveway and didn't stop and didn't hesitate, it blew my mind.
It was
it's definitely a skill.
It was probably almost as good as when Peter Griffin was trying to back his boat into the marina. I wish I could pull it up. It's counterintuitive. Everything's the opposite.
Some of that is interesting because I trained this one dude, and I swear I have a map in my head of where I'm going, or the points I'm trying to hit, or
like
I'm
your
back
apex pillars, and
I'm back into this corner of this, that's what I'm aiming for. And whenever this dude backed up that I was training, it was like it was a brand new experience every time. And he was with me for 3 weeks. And
you sound like an old head.
Oh man, it was
right.
And he was older than me, like 20 years older than me. It was
that's probably why. Old dog, new tricks. Yeah. Have you seen? Oh man, we got to get this hooked up so we can put videos on here. Have you seen it must be TikTok, so you guys would know. He's just driving along. And he's recording himself in a big semi, and he goes to reach for a bag of chips and
I didn't see that one.
Wait, like he goes off the road?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, and it's like, is that bag of chips really worth it? And it's like, all his car goes across the highway.
The one company I worked for, they had cameras in every truck all the time.
So you're under constant
forward
surveillance.
And reverse. And it wasn't it was kind of weird because the cameras went to a second party in
China,
wherever.
Where they could just spy on you.
Yeah, they're just spying. But they only sent the ones that needed to be reviewed. But then in the training day, they show you all the guys, these are the last 20 guys who got fired from the camera, and these are the things they did. And they have, what a TikTok page that would make.
Oh, yeah.
Dude toasting the stoplight at 70 miles an hour because he was 30 minutes late. And they know everything. He was 30 minutes late to work. He raced through the stoplight, going the long way to go to the diner to get his coffee and a breakfast.
That's like an FBI investigation.
They knew everything.
Even if he made it on time, you're fired for speeding, for blowing the red light.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that is hilarious.
But
what others like more Ezra?
Yeah,
What else
more.
did they do?
The crashes. Now some of them were fascinating because they showed us a couple where like the four-wheeler was at fault and like.
Is that what you call normal cars, four-wheelers?
Yeah. The idiots
Is
are all
is that a police thing too? How did you know that? You just guessed?
No, I just listening.
Yeah.
That like went
Right over my head. No, not like a real four-wheeler.
Like, how did we get to ATVs?
This is trucker talk.
Yeah, trucker talk.
Sorry.
The old one axle.
Well, yeah, we refer to you
The
guys as the
retards are referred
18-wheelers.
to as the four-wheelers.
All right, so the four-wheelers.
Pulled right out in front of him. He toasted them, and they were like nothing he could have done.
And then I show up.
Oh, you'd have showed up on that one.
I would have been like, oh, this is unbelievable. The four-wheeler pulled right in front of this 18-wheeler.
I'm feeling othered.
Now, how many times did you get video, or was video mostly reserved for once people were fighting it in court?
Like in the truck?
Yeah, like if you pulled up to an accident, how often do people say like this is on dash cam? Like I've got it.
Like hardly ever.
Hardly ever. Okay.
I don't like maybe more with semis, but that'd be more like on the highway for like the state police.
Okay.
The only time we dealt with truckers is when they were stuck under our bridges.
Bridges.
Were there any
Bridges.
Buffalo.
trucker's worst enemy.
Buffalo. There's this one train line that goes through the whole freaking city.
The way you said
10'6". Anyway.
The rerouting. You can't imagine.
You went to a dark place in your mind right there. You were like,
Bridges.
those son of a guns.
It's
always MTA. They had to take care of that.
The stress when
When
you're
it's
driving blind, where you're just on the GPS and you've never been there before.
Okay, that's driving blind. That's code for driving blind.
Yeah.
So four-wheelers,
so much.
driving blind is a place you've never been. Keep going.
And bridges are bad.
And you
Bridges are bad,
and you
yeah.
see the sign 10'6" and you're 13'6" and you're like,
I can squeeze
I gotta
in there.
find a way to turn around.
I'm about to jack it around in this side street, this person's driveway.
Yeah.
One time I was hauling overload and they were working on the bridge and like the guys are there working on it and I'm overweight and overweight. Like I can't go across it. So it's like a 2-lane highway. I
75-point turn?
I definitely broke a dude's cable across his driveway. That was optional that day.
Yeah.
But I got turned around and pulled out of there and went around the long way.
Man, you really got
Getting hung up there would have been,
Oh yeah. Well, the MTA. So it was mostly our train bridges.
Yep.
Like for the Metro North.
Yep.
That it's like New Haven,
Old
New York
train
City.
bridges built in the 50s.
Yep. Those boys would get stuck under that thing, and the MTA
Scalped
guys
up.
would show up because it was
Oh, they were probably mad. The whole, just
probably all they deal with.
vicious.
That's why every time you're like bridges, those guys are like truck drivers. They're the worst. All right, let's.
hilarious.
Wow, that was hilarious. That was fun. Let's transition before we wrap things up. I don't know how we can break it down a couple levels from that. One thing that I won't speak for Nick, but one thing that I'm really passionate about, and it's probably because of maybe just because I was a young man, but also being in policing, seeing basically the lost nature of men, especially young men right now, is something that I think a lot about, and how we can reach those. So, talking a little bit about that, if you could say something to your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess the big thing I have had to learn is letting God be in, like, being comfortable with God having a plan, and that I need to know the next step, but I don't need to know the whole thing. And if I I really wanted, at 18, I really wanted the roadmap. And I don't really need the roadmap. I just need the next thing. The next thing I need to be working on. That's been my own journey more. Is being comfortable with that. And I know it's kind of cliche, but I think it being okay was part of that, like the journey being okay. We all want to arrive, but the truth is it's more in the journey than it is on arriving. And when you're young, it's so easy to want to arrive and hold that up as like the achievement, kind of.
The thing that matters most.
Yes. Yep. And yeah. So that's what I would tell my 18-year-old self. I'd tell myself to marry my wife sooner, but that's probably not true. But marry her, yeah. We knew each other for 5 years or so, and I wasn't that concerned about it for a while. And if I would have not put any energy into worrying about any other people, if I'd known that was the one. So I'd have told him that too, but that wouldn't really changed anything, probably.
Did you think, when Rock asked you that question, did you think at all, like, what would I tell Eric?
That's a different question, really.
Eric is
Eric's my son, he's 20 now.
For anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, what you'd tell your son is a little different. Mostly because the giving your kids their space to make their journey their own, but still being able to speak into their lives. So that tug and pull of giving them all of the room they need, while still being able to have input is a fascinating balance or change. And I've told Eric a few things in the last while, and he's kind of looking around, deciding what he wants to put his hand to, I guess is what I would say. And you can't really rush that process very much. I could think of lots of things he could do, but he's got to kind of decide what he wants to do. And I tell him some things he shouldn't do. That's kind of that's the reality of it. Like, I'm not really telling him what he should do, but I am definitely saying, well, there are some things that are a bad idea.
That's an interesting strategy. Like, we all know that you can't force. Yeah, I mean, like, in my experience, I don't feel like I was receptive at his age to being told what to do because somebody else had already done it before me.
Yep.
I feel like that's the worst strategy to take with kids. So to tell them, to try to guide them and offer what not to do might be more effective. I've never thought about that. Do you find that you find confidence in that strategy?
Ooh, confidence in kids is that's a double-edged sword of a word there. Yeah. I'm comfortable with it, I guess is what I would say. I don't know if I'm confident, because it's kind of like God. We'd all, even our kids, as we start to let them go, we'd like to just push button or, order up what we want, but that doesn't give them their freedom to have their journey and for God to be able to take them where they need to go also. Because I really think, even for my own self, I couldn't have imagined what God's plans were. I can see some of them now looking back on them, and I don't even think that I can imagine what God's plans are for my kids exactly. Like, I know what some bad plans would be, but the good side of it, man, I hope I'm around to watch them and to cheer them on and participate. What I would say is I have become aware, and as I've thought about this in the last while, access to capital. Like we talk about the barrier to entry. And I did a stupid little thing this week that made me laugh about that. My little nephew's 12, and he wanted to buy a lawn tractor, and he called me up and said, could I borrow $40? Because I have 100, and if I borrow 40, I'd get there. And I thought about it some, and part of me was like, yeah, you can borrow $40, and we're going to see what kind of a little man you are, because that's cheap. That's the cheapest I'll get to know what kind of a little man he is. And I hope it works good, and I could risk $100,000 on him 5 years from now if I was in that position. And I'd like to be in that position. That would be fun. Like, if he proves that he's worth it, wouldn't that be fun? Risk $100,000, because nothing pays back. Like we're talking about investing. The truth is, nothing pays back like people, if you find the ones you trust and who have a track record. I believe that. Like, I'd like to. I'm speaking that into being down the road. Yeah. I'm not there where I could do 100,000 without shorting something or making mama mad at me.
Or having a risk assessment.
Risking something.
An exit strategy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's paid you back yet, but he got his money's worth, because I drove through Glenville the other day, and he was driving that thing around the roads like he had a license and everything. He was having fun.
He might have got in trouble for that this week and had somebody call the police on him.
Oh no. Yep. It wasn't me.
It was Nick.
It was Nick.
I knew who it
Nick's
was.
like that kid. Look at him. Hello, 911. Yes.
He was having too much fun.
I think one of the most difficult things in parenting, I'm not at that stage yet, but something that I watched my parents do was kind of encouraging your kids to have their own autonomy to make decisions, and that's got to be a tough. I'm not there yet, so I'm trying to get as many insights as I can, but it's got to be hard to see them maybe making a mistake, but holding back, not to say you're making a mistake, make the change, and letting them kind of learn for themselves, which will pay off, I think, for them.
Yeah, I think the earlier you can let them make mistakes, the better. Like, when you choose to interfere or not let them feel the consequences, like, that's the whole helicopter mom thing is, there's a bunch of kids that haven't felt the consequences. And, like, one of the things growing up rural or farm is like, it's even harder to shield the consequences. Like, I had a nephew that doesn't listen very good, and he was over the one day, and my son, we were moving cattle around, and my son told him, like, Benj, get out of the way. And Benj didn't listen. He 100% heard it, didn't listen, and crossed this way, and this cow trucked him. I mean, she got him and got underneath him, flipped him up over her, the whole deal.
Is he okay? Was he okay?
He was okay.
That's fine.
And that was great. Knowing he was okay, if I could arrange that for Benjamin to happen like 10 times, not that specific thing, but like that thing.
Right, yes. I think we know what you mean.
He might have a shot at learning. Like, some people learn hard.
Yep.
And that's a fairly rough way of saying that, because I would say the sooner and earlier you can money autonomy. How early did you get money autonomy from your parents?
Pretty early. I never really had any money. But I made decisions.
You started making decisions with some of the money you earned.
Yep.
That was, see, I did too, and I would say that is something I recommend. Like, as soon as you can show them the fruits of their work, and then give them because that's a fairly safe, easy spot to give them that they can have ownership and do their things.
Right.
From there, it goes a little harder, like attitude. Like, honestly, the stuff we struggle with as parents is attitudes and like what friends encourage bad attitudes and how do we adjust attitudes in our home.
One thing that Kerry Herbine said, he was our fourth guest.
Yep.
He was talking about how his parenting style has kind of evolved, and like obviously when they're younger, that needs to be more directive. Don't touch the stove; it's hot. Don't stand in front of the kettle.
Yep.
And then as they get older, you have to kind of give more away of your own desires and your own
dreams. Like
vision,
you can't
vision
live
for them.
your dreams through your kids. That's a bad plan.
Right. Yeah. But I mean that's wow. That's wild advice. It's good. We're pretty much wrapping up here. But Nick, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, will you come back sometime?
Sure.
That'd be great. I had a lot of fun talking with you. I think we both had a lot of fun talking to you. Thanks for coming on, Ezra. Yeah, I mean, I think this is I shouldn't say that this is the longest conversation I've ever had with you. I mean, we've had quite a few longer conversations, but I feel like, yeah, you've definitely confirmed what I thought about you. Like, you are a really interesting guy with a lot of thoughts and a wealth of knowledge. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much for taking time out of your evening.
Well, I had fun, guys. And for talking this long, it felt like it was no talking at all.
Yep. Yeah, it's so
pretty
fast.
neat.
Yep.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Give me that pig book when you're done with it.
All right, we'll send it along.
All right, thanks, Ezra.
Thanks, Ezra.
All right, thanks everybody else for tuning in. We'll see you next time.